At 2:13 in the morning, the fire station alarm suddenly exploded through the silence. Ethan Walker was asleep in a chair. He had been awake for almost 20 hours, but the second he heard the alarm, his eyes opened. He jumped to his feet. Structure fire. Those two words were enough. Within seconds, Ethan was running toward the truck. His boots weren't fully tied. His jacket was half-zipped. The other firefighters were already climbing inside. The engine roared out of the station. Ethan looked through the windshield. A massive column of black smoke was rising above the houses. He didn't know it yet, but the fire they were about to fight would completely change his life. Not because someone would die, not because the building would burn down, but because Ethan was about to notice something that almost everyone else had ignored for years, something that would eventually turn a firefighter with an ordinary salary into the owner of a multi-million-dollar company. Ethan grew up in Ohio. His father was a mechanic. His mother worked at a local hospital. Money was never abundant, but Ethan never thought his family was poor. His parents taught him something more valuable than money. If someone needed help, you helped them. Ethan followed that rule his entire life. When he was 18, he joined a volunteer fire department. At first, he only wanted something exciting to do, but his first real emergency changed him. A house caught fire late one winter evening. An elderly man was trapped inside. Ethan and the other firefighters went through the front door. The heat was unbelievable. Smoke covered everything. They eventually found the man unconscious in a bedroom. They carried him outside. Paramedics revived him. He survived. Ethan never forgot that moment. For the first time, he understood what firefighters actually did. They didn't just fight fires, they gave people another chance. A few years later, Ethan became a full-time firefighter. The salary wasn't incredible, but he loved the job. He loved the team. He loved knowing that every shift could mean saving someone's life. For nearly 10 years, Ethan believed he would spend his entire career inside a fire station. Then came the warehouse fire. When the truck arrived that night, flames were already shooting through the roof. The building belonged to a small furniture manufacturer. Several employees had escaped, but the fire was spreading rapidly. Ethan and his crew entered from the eastern side. Visibility was almost zero. They moved slowly. Then Ethan noticed something strange. The building's fire suppression system had failed. There was supposed to be water spraying from the ceiling. Nothing came out. The system had been inspected only 6 months earlier, but the inspection had apparently missed a serious problem. Ethan's team managed to contain the fire. Nobody died, but the building was destroyed. The next morning, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about it. A functioning sprinkler system could have dramatically reduced the damage. Instead, a small technical failure had turned into a disaster worth millions of dollars. Ethan began asking questions. How often did this happen? How many buildings had outdated fire systems? How many businesses believed they were protected when they weren't? He started researching. The answer shocked him. There were thousands of commercial buildings across America with aging fire protection systems. Many business owners didn't understand them. They paid contractors to inspect them. They signed paperwork, and they assumed everything was fine. Ethan saw an opportunity, not to make money from fires, but to prevent them. At first, his coworkers laughed. One evening at the fire station, Ethan explained his idea. "I think businesses need better fire protection inspections." One firefighter looked at him. "They already have inspectors." "I know. So what's your idea?" Ethan explained that he wanted to create a company that didn't just check a box on a form. His company would inspect systems, photograph problems, document everything digitally, and explain exactly what needed to be repaired. His coworker laughed. "You're going to start a fire inspection company?" Ethan nodded. "Maybe." Another firefighter smiled. "You barely know how to run a business." Ethan laughed. "That's true." Everyone laughed. Ethan laughed with them, but that night, he started researching how to make it happen. He studied regulations, certification requirements, insurance, inspection equipment, fire suppression technology, building codes. He watched training videos after his shifts. He took courses on weekends. He spent his days fighting fires and his nights learning how to prevent them. His wife, Sarah, noticed. "You've been staring at that laptop for 6 hours. Ethan looked up. "I think I found something." "What?" "A problem nobody wants to deal with." Sarah smiled. "That sounds like exactly the kind of thing you would turn into a business." Ethan started his company with $8,000. Almost all of it came from his savings. He bought inspection equipment, a laptop, a camera, a used van, and insurance. The company had no office. The office was his garage. The warehouse was one shelf. The receptionist was his wife. And the technician was Ethan. His first customer was a small restaurant. Ethan inspected the building's fire extinguishers, alarms, and suppression system. He found 17 problems. The restaurant owner was shocked. "Nobody told me about these." Ethan showed him photographs. "This valve isn't functioning correctly." He pointed to another picture. "This extinguisher is expired." Then another. "Your emergency lighting isn't working." The owner stared at the report. "How much will it cost to fix?" Ethan gave him the estimate. The owner paid. It wasn't much money, but Ethan had discovered something. Businesses didn't want complicated reports. They wanted someone to tell them what was wrong and how to fix it. So Ethan changed his business model. Instead of just inspecting systems, he offered complete fire safety management, inspection, maintenance, repairs, emergency service, documentation, training, everything. The business started growing, slowly, then quickly. For the first year, Ethan worked 2 jobs, firefighter during the day, business owner whenever he wasn't at the station. He would finish a 24-hour shift, drive home, sleep for 3 hours, then get into the van. Sometimes he would arrive at a customer's building so exhausted that he had to sit in the parking lot before walking inside. Sarah worried about him. "You can't keep doing this." Ethan knew she was right, but the company wasn't big enough to replace his firefighter salary, not yet. Then Ethan got his first major contract. A property management company owned 37 commercial buildings. They needed one company to handle fire safety inspections. The contract was worth $180,000 per year. Ethan stared at the number. It was more money than his company had ever made. He signed. Then reality hit. He needed employees. He hired 3 technicians. He bought another vehicle. He rented a small office. For the first time, Ethan felt like he was running a real company. But within 6 months, everything began falling apart. 2 technicians quit. One made a serious inspection mistake. A customer threatened to sue, and then Ethan received a letter from the state. His company was being investigated. Ethan sat at his desk reading the letter again and again. His hands were shaking. He had spent years building the company. Now it looked like it could disappear. The investigation lasted 3 months. Ethan barely slept. He reviewed every inspection, every document, every employee record, every certification. Eventually, investigators found no intentional wrongdoing, but they discovered weaknesses in Ethan's system. The problem wasn't that Ethan didn't care. The problem was that he had built a company around himself. Ethan sat alone in his office that night, staring at the contract. 212 buildings. It was the kind of opportunity he had dreamed about, but it also terrified him, because there was one problem. His company wasn't ready. Not yet. He had 50 employees, a few vehicles, a small office, and a system that still depended heavily on him. If he accepted the contract, everything would have to change. If he rejected it, someone else would take it. Ethan looked at the clock. 2:06 in the morning. In a few hours, he was supposed to report to the fire station. He picked up the phone and called Sarah. She answered half asleep. "What's wrong?" "I got the contract." She immediately woke up. "The big one?" "Yes." "That's amazing." Ethan didn't answer. Sarah knew him well enough to understand. "What's the problem?" "I can't do both anymore." There was silence. For years, Ethan had been afraid of leaving the fire department. Being a firefighter wasn't just his job. It was part of who he was. He had spent more than a decade running toward emergencies while everyone else ran away. He had friends there, people he trusted with his life. He had memories there, but his company was growing, and now hundreds of businesses were depending on it. Sarah finally said, "You already know what you have to do." Ethan sighed. "I know." The next morning, Ethan walked into the fire station. He had walked through those doors thousands of times, but that morning felt different. His captain noticed immediately. "You look serious." Ethan nodded. "I need to talk to you." They went into the office. Ethan explained everything: the company, the contract, the decision. His captain listened quietly. Then he smiled. "You've been preparing for this for years." Ethan looked confused. What do you mean? You became a firefighter because you wanted to help people. He pointed toward the station. Now you built something that can protect people before we ever get the call. Ethan looked down. His captain continued. You're not abandoning the job. You're taking the next step. Ethan handed in his resignation. He walked outside. For the first time in years, he wasn't heading toward a fire station shift. He was heading toward something he had built himself. The next 12 months were the hardest of Ethan's life. He needed to transform a small company into a regional operation. He hired managers, he created departments, he purchased equipment, he negotiated insurance, he expanded training. He built a 24-hour emergency response team. He developed software that allowed customers to track inspections, repairs, certifications, and safety reports from their phones. And he made one rule. No employee could ever sign an inspection report without actually inspecting the equipment. Ethan knew that one dishonest employee could destroy everything. He personally trained the first group of managers. He told them, "We're not selling paperwork. We're selling peace of mind." The managers understood. The company began growing rapidly. The 2 building contract became 3 contracts, then 5, then 10. Within 2 years, Ethan's company was operating across multiple states. Revenue passed $5 million, then $10 million. But success brought a new enemy: competition. A national company noticed Ethan. They were 10 times larger. They had hundreds of technicians, thousands of customers, and a massive marketing budget. They started offering lower prices. Customers began receiving calls. "We can do the same work for less." Ethan lost 3 contracts in 1 month, then 5. His managers were worried. One asked, "Should we lower our prices?" Ethan shook his head. "No." "Why?" "Because then we become exactly like them." Instead, Ethan focused on what made his company different. His company didn't just inspect. It explained, it documented, it responded quickly, it used technology, and most importantly, Ethan's employees understood the consequences of mistakes. Every technician knew that a failed inspection wasn't just a paperwork problem. A real person could eventually pay the price. That philosophy became the company's identity. One afternoon, Ethan received an unexpected call. It was from a hospital network. They owned 14 hospitals. Their existing fire safety contractor had failed an audit. They needed someone new. The contract was worth nearly $2 million annually. Ethan flew to their headquarters. A group of executives sat across from him. One executive asked, "Why should we choose a company your size?" Ethan smiled. "Because I used to be the person running into the building." The room became quiet. He continued, "I know what firefighters see when a system fails." He explained how small problems become large emergencies. He showed them examples from his company's reports, photos, inspection histories, equipment failure patterns, response times. The executives asked difficult questions. Ethan answered every one. At the end, the hospital CEO looked at him. "How quickly can you start?" Ethan smiled. "Tomorrow." The contract changed the company. The hospitals required a higher standard. Every procedure had to be documented. Every employee had to be trained. Emergency response had to be available 24 hours a day. Ethan invested heavily. He hired experienced firefighters, former inspectors, engineers, technicians, people who understood what was at stake. The company became known for one thing: reliability. Soon, other major organizations began calling. Universities, factories, shopping centers, airports, hotels, government buildings. The company expanded into fire alarm systems, sprinkler maintenance, emergency lighting, smoke detection, industrial fire suppression, training, risk assessments. Ethan had started with one van. Now his company was managing fire safety systems across thousands of buildings. But Ethan never forgot his original mission. One evening, he visited a small family-owned restaurant. The owner was worried. The restaurant was old. Money was tight. The owner expected Ethan to give him a huge repair bill. Instead, Ethan walked through the building himself. He found several issues. Some were serious, Others were minor. He explained everything. The owner looked at the estimate. I can't afford all of this right now. Ethan nodded. Then let's prioritize. He divided the repairs into 3 categories. Emergency. Important. Can wait. The owner looked surprised. You'll do that? Of course. Why? Ethan smiled. Because I know what it's like to not have much money. The owner eventually became one of Ethan's longest-running customers. By Ethan's 45th birthday, the company employed more than 600 people. Its annual revenue had crossed $30 million. The business was profitable. It had offices in several states. Competitors were trying to buy it. Investment firms were making offers. One company offered Ethan $18 million. Another offered $25 million. He rejected both. Then came the biggest offer. A national corporation offered $41 million. Ethan took the paperwork home. Sarah placed it on the kitchen table. She looked at him. That's more money than we ever imagined. I know. What are you going to do? Ethan looked at the document. He remembered his first van, the garage, the $8,000, the first restaurant, the first employee, the first major contract, the warehouse fire, the day he left the fire department, everything. Then he remembered why he had started. He wanted to prevent fires. He wanted to protect people. If he sold the company, he could retire, but he wasn't ready. He rejected the $41 million offer. His decision shocked everyone. Some people called him crazy. Others called him greedy. But Ethan knew something. The company still had a purpose, and he wanted to build it bigger. Instead of selling, he reinvested. New technology, better training, more employees, more locations.